Welcome home, horror fans. My name's Adam.
And I'm Zoe, and these are the top 10 deaths in the Saw franchise.
There are a lot of deaths in the Saw franchise, so here we are to talk about the top 10 best scenes in the Saw franchise.
Where someone kicks the bucket.
Where a character meets their demise. And look, we all have our favourite characters, and we all have some very favourite scenes, some many big moments throughout the franchise. These are the most epic and biggest moments in the franchise where somebody died.
Yeah, plenty to choose from.
Plenty to choose from.
Let's jump right into number 10. At number 10, we have Detective Alison Carey.
This death is a very big deal. A fan favourite, Alison Carey, of course.
Definitely a fan favourite character, but I would go as far to say a fan favourite death as well. I think that a lot of people don't see this death coming, which is what makes it so shocking. But I think the way the death is filmed, although it's excruciating and horrible to watch and so sad for her, it is filmed very pretty. Like it looks, it's a nice scene. It's lit up very well. I think that the trap is made to look like a bit of art, I would say.
It's very aesthetically pleasing.
Aesthetically pleasing to have the sort of her
the angel
finish,
trap to be an angel style.
I don't know how I'm going to justify saying that it is quite a beautiful trap, but I'm sure all of you people in the comments, you understand what I mean.
It's very, very aesthetic. Yeah, she's a character who you would have thought maybe would have had more of a story to be told here, and randomly she gets thrown in a trap and killed off very early in this film. And it's a big moment. It still stands out to a lot of people. I know we have a lot of commenters always bringing up Carey whenever we do lists. We do love Carey. The way she went was very epic in a rigged trap by Amanda.
Yeah, having Amanda show up to watch it happen
as well. A very cool moment.
Very cool moment.
It was cool to watch her attempts to get out of the trap and, of course, unfortunately not be able to. And the way it all ended up just, let's say, her guts exploding everywhere and Amanda turning up after. A fantastic, iconic scene, and very well deserved on this list.
One we look forward to in Saw 3, for sure.
Yes, which sounds weird, but it's a great scene. Which brings us to number 9.
At number 9, we have Timothy Young.
All right. Famous The Rack Trap.
The Rack Trap.
Everybody loves the Rack Trap.
Everyone talks about. We love the Rack Trap. The Rack Trap is spoken about so much.
Yes, John's personal favourite.
His personal favourite. I would go as far to say rightfully so. I think the Rack Trap is pretty horrific. Thinking about being in a position of having your limbs twisted and twisted until they pop. It's not really a position you want to be in. But seeing John's personal favourite trap play out in the way it does, having Timothy, I would say, twisted to pieces, and having Jeff watch on as it's happening, it is a very epic scene.
It's a very epic scene. It's probably one of the most memorable scenes in Saw 3. Look, without going into Jeff too much, Jeff tries his hardest to get Timothy Young. He actually does pretty well in this one. He manages to get the key out and doesn't know how to use it or where it goes. It's just, he kind of just hugs Timothy and watches him die. It's very odd.
It's very sad because it's Jeff coming to terms with the killer of his son, who he has dreamed about getting his revenge against. And then realizing that he doesn't want him to die and he wants to save him. And then trying to save him but not knowing how to get him out of the trap. It's actually quite a sad scene to witness, not only for Timothy Young, but also for Jeff himself, realizing the whole time he never wanted what was happening to happen. I think it's done really well.
Very well. The actual scene, watching every single limb twist as it goes, it feels very real. It's hard to watch, let's say. It's a very big moment in the franchise, and the Rack Trap is very well known, but also what's going on here with Timothy's death and like what you said with Jeff and the storyline there. There's so much going on here and so much to like. As far as this is, as gross as it is, it's also a very big and important scene.
And just a little fun fact about this scene before we move on. There is an unscored version on YouTube that goes for about 8.5 minutes, and it is pretty full on. If you think the scene is full on its own in the film, just wait till you see this version.
The extended version.
The extended version, unscored version of the scene.
Yeah, we don't need to see extended, but yes, it's gross.
It's pretty horrific. Go give it a watch.
Which brings us to number 8.
At number 8, we have William Easton.
Another one of our favorite characters, William Easton. Look, by the end of this film, we, of course, start rooting for William Easton, and there is a big twist here in the fact that he's put inside a cage with a family that is not his, and they decide to kill him. It's not very
Brent
nice.
sure does.
Yes.
The thing about William Easton is he is a character who does seem to be rehabilitated from his tests. He seems like someone who maybe would have learned from it if he had have been given the option to survive. William Easton you do kind of feel a bit sorry for because he's just endured all this pain. He's had to make all these decisions about who dies. His insurance policy has really been put in his lap, and he has to use that policy in real life to determine who lives and who dies. And to have him go through the whole thing, experience his own trauma, both physically and mentally, and then not even be given the chance to save himself, purely relying on whether someone else will grant him the justice of letting him live. They don't. William Easton gets torn to pieces by acid that is injected throughout multiple places in his body. It's very sad to watch.
It's a very gruesome death
It's a very gruesome death.
Yeah.
It's an epic death again, and that's what I love. I think that if I have so many favorite characters in the Saw franchise, I don't care if you kill them, just make the deaths great.
Yes.
And I think William Easton's death is great. It's something I enjoy watching every time. It is played in conjunction with Hoffman getting the bear trap put on his head.
It's the climax of the film.
It's just all around an amazing scene.
Saw 6 is, let's say, one of the better films. There's a lot going on in this movie, and the climax to this is probably one of the biggest and better endings to any of the Saw films. There's so many great things happening at the end of Saw 6. And you just never get tired of it. It's one of these movies where you kind of probably are rooting for Easton and kind of like hope that maybe he survives every time you watch it. But of course, if he's going to go, what a way to go.
What a way to go.
Really fantastic.
In front of
scene.
his sister as well.
Yes. So that brings us to number 7.
At number 7, we have Special Agent Perez.
Right now, you're feeling helpless.
And what a special agent she is.
We love Perez.
We love Perez.
We love Perez. And Perez being killed in one of our favorite scenes in the entire franchise. How could she not make the list?
She dies twice in this franchise.
She does die twice in this franchise. Her second death is our favorite.
The second death is the one we're talking about specifically because in the first one where she fake dies. And Billy explodes all over her face. Let's not talk about that. In the second film, the second death, when she is finally actually killed by Hoffman in the right now you're feeling helpless scene. It is one of our favorite scenes. The right now you're feeling helpless line when it plays over in your mind. It's
over and over again and currently being distorted and undistorted. Yeah. It is just... Oh, I love it so much. Chills every time.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And she does get a really great death because there's a couple of people that die in that scene, but her death specifically in that, the exclamation point in that scene, really great. A very intimate moment between her and Hoffman.
What I love about this scene so much as well is when the first time she dies, she grabs Storm's face as well and she sort of holds onto him. And it's the same thing that happens with Hoffman when Hoffman kills her. And I just think that that's a cool little comparison between the scenes and between both her deaths per se.
A beautiful callback.
A beautiful callback, absolutely. Yeah. But I think this scene works so well. It's so good to see Hoffman just lose his mind. And we know he's someone who is a little bit crazy, but this is the moment that it genuinely ticks over and he's willing to do
killer,
he is willing to do whatever to survive. And unfortunately Perez is in the crossfire when this happens, but again, another great scene to have her die in. It is so memorable and we will think about it forever.
That's right. So just take note, do not cross Hoffman. And I'm talking to you, Dr. Gordon. All right. He's coming for you. And that brings us to number 6.
At number 6, we have Lynn Denlin.
Lynn Denlin, another very big death scene. This is a huge scene because there's a lot going on. A lot of people die in this one moment. This is where the franchise kind of explodes. And look, the producers / directors and writers have talked about this scene a lot. Basically saying that they probably regret killing off so many people in one go at the end of Saw 3.
Yep.
And it all begins, obviously, with Jeff... unknowingly killing his wife by killing John Kramer. Anyway, we're not going to go into everything that happens here. Poor old Lynn, she's had an absolute horrible time in Saw 3, and it all ends with her head exploding.
The sad thing about Lynn is she is put in the most horrific circumstances in Saw 3, having to perform a backyard surgery on John Kramer with little to no utensils, no medical equipment. Just, it seems impossible, and that's because it probably is. All while having a shotgun collar around her neck.
Yeah, I want to say she passed her test by pulling that off.
I think she...
Yes.
She did. John did tell Amanda to let her go. It was Amanda who wouldn't let her leave. Yeah. But Lynn, poor Lynn. Yep. We feel so sorry for her the whole time. She just wants to go home. She is maybe cheating on her husband a little bit, and maybe neglecting her child a bit, and maybe taking antidepressant pills that John doesn't like too much. But that's no excuse. No, it's no excuse.
She gets a really bad time out of this. But, again, if you're going to die, it's pretty great to have a mind-blowing way to go out.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
It definitely is. And boy, is it mind-blowing.
Absolutely. This is the most mind-blowing we've ever seen. Effectively, if you really want to see it, again, the extended scene of Jeff hanging out with his poorly departed wife. There is a deleted or extended scene of him hanging out with her after she has her head exploded.
And if you haven't seen that scene, I think that it'll help to let all of you Jeff haters appreciate his character a little bit more. Yeah. It shows you how emotional he is and how driven by emotion he is. Hence why he makes all the decisions he makes throughout Saw 3. I cannot fault Jeff in any way whatsoever, and I think that he is probably the most human person in the franchise.
Quite possibly. Take that, Jeff haters. Bring us all the way to number 5.
At number 5, we've officially hit the halfway point.
Here we go.
With Eric Matthews.
Eric Matthews.
Oh, we love Eric Matthews.
And I love the way he dies. This is great.
You love the way he dies. Yeah. Adam constantly talks about how he loves watching Saw 4 because he loves seeing Eric Matthews on that ice block the whole time, and he thinks it's so great. And I agree.
Eric Matthews' performance in this, albeit he's not like a huge character in Saw 4, but he's so great. He just looks like probably the most defeated character of any trap victim.
I think that the comparison of how his character ends in Saw 2 versus where he ends up in Saw 4, this defeated shell of a man, it's so sad to see unfold.
So sad.
But his performance, it elevates it so much. It's so great. And all to end with him being crushed by 2 giant blocks of ice and having his head just obliterated. It's so horrible to watch.
It really is. It really is. And and that's why I think that this death is on this list, because it's not just when he does finally die. It's a very quick death. There's 2 ice blocks come down, crushes his head so fast. But it's really the trajectory, sort of the leading through the whole film of him just a blubbering mess on that ice block.
Even trying to kill himself at one point.
Yeah, it just gets worse and worse throughout the film. And it just ends so abruptly and so shockingly. For me, it's one of the best parts. And again, Saw 4 has a pretty cool ending with Rig in that room and Hoffman reveal and all that sort of stuff. But I think the highlight of that ending of that film is the way he all of a sudden...
his portrayal and the way that he does
so quickly.
And unfortunately bite the dust. Poor Eric Matthews with his line delivered, "I don't want to play anymore." I don't want to play anymore. It is just so sad, but also so funny at the same time that they would think of this and put him in this mess and make him as defeated as he is, especially when Donnie Wahlberg didn't want to come back. They're like, you know what? We're going to have you come back and we're going to have you be this absolute shell of a human being. Yeah. It's kind of sad.
We will forever be grateful to the producers for forcing Donnie Wahlberg to come back and reprise his role, as small as the role was for Saw 4. He really didn't want to be there. But
one of the best parts.
Phenomenal job.
Absolutely.
Which brings us to number 4.
At number 4, we have Amanda Young.
It's a lie! Nobody is reborn. It's all bullshit!
Yes, she is, guys. Amanda Young.
You did mention before that Saw 3 definitely has that scene where a lot of people die, and here is one of those people, Amanda Young. arguably the one that kind of set it in motion, set those deaths to happen. I mean, if you really want to get technical, it was kind of Hoffman. But Amanda was the one that made the decision ultimately that resulted in her own death.
Yeah, Saw 3 being, I believe, Amanda's best performance as a character.
Yeah.
Obviously, she's bigger than ever in this film, out of the first 3 films.
Yeah.
And she's the most badass in this one. She's very cool, very crazy, but a lot of fun in the film. And, of course, it ends with her dying, sadly. But it is a very big moment, and it's definitely one of the big deaths in the franchise.
The big deaths. I think the biggest plot twist with John saying that the whole time had been Amanda's game, and that Jeff was Lynn's wife, which Amanda never knew about, and having Jeff come in and just shoot her straight away after Amanda has delivered that shot to Lynn it's so crazy to watch. And Saw 3's ending is just made even better by the amount of plot twists and the amount of things that happen that just elevate it further and further. Killing off Amanda, definitely a choice. I will say killing off an Amanda was definitely a choice.
Yeah, that's true.
But it is just a great death.
Yeah, Saw 3 had one of the best endings of any of the films, one of the biggest endings when you talk about like the amount of things happening and how they changed the course of the franchise after this film. But of course, they shot their load all on this ending and didn't have much left going forward.
No, scratching their head a bit.
Yeah, but you know,
and
it's
then
cool when
we
they do
got
that.
Hoffman.
So an easy choice to have in this list.
Easy choice.
But it's not quite made it into the top 3, which is where we've ended up here. So you might be thinking, if Amanda doesn't make the top 3, then geez, these must be some pretty big moments
and
they're about
we
to talk
can
about.
answer that pretty quickly. Number 3 is Jill Tuck.
Game over.
Jill Tuck. And you know what the best thing about Jill Tuck's death is?
We get to see it twice.
You want to know the only thing wrong with killing you, Jill? I can only do it once.
We get to see it twice in 2 really great kill scenes.
Really great kill scenes.
Really great death
As
scenes.
much as everyone really likes to crap on the pain train. And we saw the same thing happen in Saw X with everyone getting upset that the eyeball trap wasn't real. Who cares that it's not real? We still get the gratuitous violence that we want to see. We still, in this case, get to see Jill Tuck die gladly twice. I have no thoughts about it being terrible at all. I think that her having the dream about it makes it more fun for us.
It is. It's a fun scene. Yeah, I'm not going to, like, at the end of the day as well, Saw 3D, let's not get into it. People, don't love the movie for different reasons. But there are some cool things and there's some fun things. And Hoffman chasing down Jill is a fun storyline. Maybe it's not super realistic and stuff, but it's a fun scene. And all that aside, because we're talking about the pain train a lot, the big reason why we put Jill in this very high up
It's
there
not
spot
just because she sucks.
is not just because she sucks. So for Jill fans out there, we're not just crapping on your character, but it's more specifically because of the way she goes out. And the way she goes out is the reverse bear trap.
Reverse bear trap.
Now, we've been waiting the entire franchise
to see this trap
to
take
see
someone out.
this trap actually go off, because it's been used a number of times, and it's the baby, isn't it? It's the hero trap of the franchise. People talk about it a lot. People know of the bear trap. But it never went off. It never even killed anybody. You had to do it eventually.
It arguably went off on Hoffman, but Hoffman's too smart for that.
Too smart for that. So we finally get to see the bear trap go off as intended and how it actually works. And you got to thank Saw 3D for that at least. Could you imagine if they didn't have that scene and that it never had gone off? That
Saw
would be pretty
3D,
crap.
I've said it time and time again, although it's not the best film by any means in the franchise, it is pure fan service.
Yeah.
And they do that with Dr. Gordon. They do that with having the reverse bear trap go off.
Yeah.
And what a scene to see Hoffman finally get his revenge on Jill, which, by the way, Dr. Gordon, you're in a bit of trouble because look at the lengths Hoffman went to just to kill Jill.
Yes.
Anyways, to finally see Hoffman get his revenge on Jill and Jill die by the trap that is, as I suppose, arguably started it all, is just incredible.
It's the iconic trap of
It's
the franchise.
iconic.
Yeah.
It's iconic. It's everything you could have wanted in the final chapter of Saw.
Yes, so don't complain about this placement. You cannot argue that finally seeing the iconic trap of the franchise going off and actually killing somebody. It's got to be one of the best scenes up there. I know a lot of people like seeing Jill's face just explode, but whoever was going to be in that trap, it was always going to be a big scene. So regardless of who got it killed by, the trap itself.
I am glad it was Jill Tuck.
Yeah,
John Kramer's wife.
Some people don't love Jill, and they love the fact that it was her. But regardless, it was the bear trap going off. It was phenomenal. Easy one to have in the top 3, which doesn't leave very much. So at number 2, we have...
At number 2, we have John Kramer.
I forgive you.
All right, we brought him in, okay? And now you might have been thinking that John Kramer's death could have been number 1, maybe.
Maybe.
It is a very cool death. It's a very big deal for the franchise. This is, again, another big turning point for the franchise and obviously a very important part of the Saw movies.
The trajectory of where it goes.
Changes the whole thing, right?
It changes the whole idea of the Saw franchise.
Yeah.
John Kramer's death, I really enjoy. I think that it was done pretty well.
As much as you like seeing old men die, this was one of your favorites.
John Kramer is a great character. I am probably one of the few that actually think that his death was fine. I don't think that it really mattered too much to have him die or not, because they've done things like Saw X. They brought him back plenty of times in flashbacks before, and I think that it's worked reasonably well. Having him there as a presence in flashbacks, I think works maybe even better to serve the purpose of where the franchise is headed than what it would be to have him alive the whole time. He is unfortunately dying of brain cancer. They set that up in the first film. They had no choice but to kill him off.
They painted themselves into a corner here. He was bedridden all of Saw 3, basically. So it's not like they could have probably kept him alive much longer and just kept him in bed the entire time.
Imagine they just had John die and succumb to his brain cancer. Imagine that. No, instead we have Jeff, who is driven by the idea of vengeance, who by the end wants to save everyone instead. But facing John and facing the person who has put him in the situation he's in, he can't help himself but turn back to that vengeful side again and end up murdering John, murdering Amanda, and in turn murdering his own wife.
Yes, and it was a great exclamation point on the end of this film. And I will say, as an interesting note, for those paying attention to Jeff's original tape, when he is actually presented to us in Saw 3 and he listens to his tape, we hear John say, for his test, that he needs to forgive the person that is responsible for the disappearance of his child.
You will finally come face to face with the man responsible for the loss of your child.
Now, we all assume that that's Timothy Young, but he's actually talking about himself.
He is talking
He's
about
talking
himself.
about himself because he's gone and abducted Corbett and hidden the daughter away.
I think that this as well just, again, goes to show why John is testing Lynn and Jeff in the first place is the neglect of their child, Corbett. And even towards the end of this film, when Jeff ultimately makes the decision to kill John and kill Amanda, he's not thinking of Corbett, neither is Lynn.
No.
They're not thinking about what has happened to their other child. Instead, the whole time they're thinking about Dylan, they're thinking about the revenge against the people who hurt Dylan, and they're thinking about themselves and the position that they've been put in. Which, just ultimately, again, goes to show that they are neglectful as parents.
Yes, and I think that if you were in Jeff's shoes and you had just gone through a absolute, let's say, tournament of death, just walking through it, a gauntlet of people dying in front of you constantly, then maybe you could understand why Jeff wanted to get his revenge on John.
Definitely putting myself in his shoes, I cannot see me making another decision. I think that...
You definitely would have killed John.
I definitely would have killed John.
You would have killed John
More
for fun.
More so that he has been through literal hell. He has physical trauma. He has mental trauma.
Yeah.
His poor wife has had the runaround as well. She's been shot. He thinks that she's going to die, which she does, but not for the reason that he thinks. It's a lot. It's a lot. And it makes total sense that Jeff would do what he did.
Absolutely. Which brings us to number 1, the best death in the entire Saw franchise. And I don't know if you guessed it or not, but that number 1 is...
At number 1, we have Jeff Denlon.
Jeff Denlon. No.
We're just kidding. We're totally kidding.
Look, we just thought might be fun to mention Jeff here, of course. Jeff Denlin.
We all know how much you guys love Jeff. No, I'm sure you guys know us well enough to now to know that our number one pick is Special Agent Storm.
The only way to survive this room is by entering the glass box before you.
Special Agent Storm, if you have remembered his death or not, I'm not sure at this point, but his death was phenomenal. He had an absolutely massive scene, and what a way to go.
And this is coming back to what I said at the start of this video, where I don't care if you kill off my favorite characters, just make it epic, make it incredible.
Yeah.
Let them go out with a bang, and my did Storm go out with a bang. It is a fantastic death. Every moment of this death makes it great. The whole lead up to it, the whole idea that he is cat and mousing with Hoffman the entire film, only to lead himself directly to his own death.
This is another character that we wished hadn't died.
Every time we're like, don't do it, Storm!
And had gotten more screen time and more movies and all that sort of stuff. But that being said, if you're going to kill him off, do it well, and they gave him a phenomenal scene. The glass coffin, as you guys know, one of our favorite scenes in the entire franchise. And the relationship between Hoffman and Storm is one that will never die.
It definitely won't.
Hoffman still is up late at night thinking about Storm, to this day.
We know he is.
And Storm, of course, not getting to that glass coffin, watching those walls come in and close around him as he gets crushed to death, is such an epic ending, such a phenomenal end to Saw 5. And, it's such a big moment that when he dies, the credits just snap in straight away. They don't even worry about doing anything else.
Straight away. Those walls close. You see Hoffman's final facial expression, depending on what's happening, and those credits roll.
They know that there's no way they could have topped that ending.
There is no way they could have topped it. And to me, that is my favorite ending. It was very closely followed by Hoffman's face being ripped off by the reverse bear trap. Very closely followed. But poor Storm, amazing death. We love it so much. I could watch that scene over and over again and never get tired of it. And it really is I would go as far to say, maybe the birth of Hoffman and where he starts to lose his mind a little bit.
It was such a great scene to see him sort of his mind tick over as he goes from being worried him in that glass coffin to just staring Storm down as Storm dies. A really fun fact about that scene, of course, is that the crushing death of Storm was the first ever recorded crushing death of somebody.
Something that was actually done on screen.
On screen in a film.
Shown fully the actual death of him on screen, and actually finished. The walls close. Incredible.
Which is cool. And so for them to be able to pull that off as a first in film history, which is awesome. And just one of those scenes which is probably the most rewatchable death out of all of the ones we've listed.
Absolutely. And every single time with Storm going, tell me how to open it. It's just, tell him, please tell him. He wants to get out.
I know who you are. Yes.
Oh, and Storm is still berating Hoffman till his last minute and just wanting to come off as the bigger, the superior man. It's a very tough watch, but still very amazing.
Yes. And look, this was a list that was really talking about the top scenes. It wasn't necessarily like our favorite characters or anything like that. It was just like what were the best death scenes really in the franchise. But that being said, if we had to pick who would like to come back and bring them back to life, Storm might be the character that we bring back to life.
Probably be the character
out of all of them.
I think that I would pick Storm to come back over John and over
possibly.
Amanda.
That is a hot take.
Because John and Amanda, they're dead and they're still more alive than ever with Saw X.
Yeah.
When are we ever going to get a moment like that bringing Storm back? Storm just needs to come straight back into the picture.
Yeah.
And let's hope that they can weasel him in somehow with Saw 11.
Yeah, or any of these other prequels that are coming up. That'd be great, Look, if the producers are listening...
Just a second.
Please, just do your best. I don't care.
Even if he's just mentioned. He doesn't even need to be in it. Just talk about it.
Just a photo of Storm.
Just a photo.
Just a photo. Just so if we've got a lot of Hoffman prequels coming up or whatever, even just Hoffman just holding a photo of Storm at some random point, we'll be like, yeah.
Yeah, we know you're upset about it, buddy.
That'll be cool. That'll be really, really cool. At any rate, guys, that is our list of the best deaths in the Saw franchise. If we missed any, please let us know as usual. And what was your favorite death in the franchise? I think the glass coffin, or also known as Storm's death scene, is definitely the strongest. But I'm sure you guys have your favorite death scene in the franchise.
And we'd love to hear him, so drop him down below.
We would definitely love to hear it. Otherwise, guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.
See you next time, guys.
Game over.